A lot of people I know are really successful have a creative side, not every single person, but I do think business involves a fair amount of creativity. And so it's very vulnerable to create anything.
Right.
I mean, just even like creating this show or creating your business or creating an event, because people can reject it. They can say, this is stupid, whatever. But I think, as I've created things and just being a creator, it really allows people to see your products, your heart, to get more of, what it is you're doing. And I think when you do take your time to write a song, write a book, write an article, something, you have to kind of really craft your thoughts into where you want to go. So.
Hey everybody, Mason Buckles here. So excited to have Bronson Hill of Bronson Equity with us today. Bronson is a thought leader really focused in the multifamily syndication space, operating out of California now, but a Seattle native, and made the trip back up with his family this week. So thank you for taking the time, Bronson. I really appreciate it.
Mason, really happy to be here. Excited to be in the studio, and yeah, had a nice time. It's one of these beautiful Northwest days. It was 75 degrees, 70 degrees, really lovely.
Yeah, talk me through just the last couple of days. I know you're, like I said, a native of Seattle, but you moved, a couple decades ago down in Northern California.
Yeah.
And now.
That makes me sound old. So yeah, I grew up in Shoreline, and I've been in LA for about 20 years, and I came back, just did some camping up on Whidbey Island. So that was really fun. The Fort AB area was really nice, and just really enjoyed, just getting some time with family and my daughter with me, which is really nice.
Perfect.
A lot of fun.
We caught you on the tail end of it again. Appreciate carving some time out.
Sure.
I know a lot of people don't even really know what multifamily syndication is, and I want to talk about that, but maybe you can help me better by starting with your journey. Like, how did you get to where you are? What got you excited about investing in real estate, and what led you to where you are today?
Yeah, the first time I heard about multifamily syndication, I thought they were talking about like a drug syndication or a television syndication. So I'm like, what is this? I had no idea what people were talking about, but I always knew I wanted to get into real estate, and so I had bought a single family house years ago. Had started to look into doing more. Eventually, years later, started buying more houses. Had 4 or 5 houses. And my goal really was to get to a place of financial freedom. I had a great job. I was making, high 6-figure income as a medical device sales rep, and I enjoyed what I did. I just didn't have control over my time.
Okay.
And so a lot of people will say they want financial freedom, but really what they want is time freedom.
Right.
So to me, like to take 2 weeks off or 3 weeks, I was just, people can't really, it's very difficult for a lot of professionals to do that.
Halt, right?
Exactly. So I thought, I'm going to get 30 houses. Eventually, I'll have this financial freedom. It'll be great. And then I just realized even with 4 or 5 houses was a lot of work, even though I had a property manager.
Yeah. And
so my cousin, who I was kind of a cousin I hadn't seen in years, was a real estate guy. And it turns out he did this multifamily syndication thing. And he said, why don't you do multifamily? And I said, well, I'd love to, but I don't have the money. And he said, you can raise the money.
Okay.
And so he taught me about this thing called syndication, which is basically just, it's a fancy way of saying, we pool up, money together from passive investors, and then we have the general partners, which kind of run the deal, and the passive investors get the mailbox money, which sounds great.
Kind of crowdsourcing it in, right?
Kind of, yeah. So we don't have, crowdsourcing can be, $500 or $1,000. We usually kind of between 50 and 100,000 or more is kind of the minimum. But it's great. People get really 3 things is really what we do in our business, and this is what it is. It's really cash flow, appreciation, or tax benefits. So it's usually one or all of those. And the nice thing, something like multifamily syndication typically provides all 3.
Nice. Maybe share with us an example project that you've closed that feels like kind of if I was a new investor coming into the syndication world, what would I expect their scale, scope, size, timeline, that kind of thing? Yeah.
So typically it's interesting. Deals actually get easier when you go larger, I found. So if you're in one, a lot of people think, hey, I'll do single family for a while and then I'll work up to a duplex or a 4-plex or a 10-plex. Well, I think it's less work to do 100 units than it is to do like a 5 or 10 unit, because typically you have much better management, you have on-site maintenance, you've got an on-site leasing person. It's just much more scalable. So you think from a property management standpoint, to have 10 unit properties versus 100 unit, you have everybody kind of lives on site and can do a lot more. And so, so the process really, or the returns, I should say, generally we look for around 15% per year on average. So if somebody invests generally, around a double of the equity within 5 years is kind of what we go for. It never returns. It's either much better or maybe not as good, but it's generally kind of that ballpark we look for.
That's that timeline. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Let's talk a little about like some of your past projects. Like, what's one of your favorite projects that you ever completed, or maybe one of the ones that didn't quite hit the mark?
Well, my favorite one, I can tell you both actually. Yeah. So my favorite deal we've done was one where we bought this property in Jacksonville, Florida, and we bought it for $27 million. It was around a 200 unit place. And we put just a small amount down, and we basically sold it for $37 million about 11 months later.
Oh, wow.
So we planned to hold for 5 years, but sometimes that will happen where just things go. The market. You have two types of appreciation. You've got you go in and do the renovations yourself, and you see rents go up because you forced appreciation.
Right.
If people move out, you renovate this unit, you'll see, and that directly increases the value of the property because you're really increasing the rents,
right.
And that's how it's based. But then you'll have market appreciation where it's totally outside of your control. So this one, we'd like to say we're geniuses and we just timed it perfectly. We weren't, and so that was almost 100% return to investors
in 11 months.
In 11 months, yeah, which is amazing. So that's the home run. So
right.
that's
so
the
that's
downside
one side of the coin. Yeah. What's the other?
The other side is we've had some real issue with a couple deals where the debt situation, where a lot of multifamily debt is bridge debt. So if you're going in and you're doing these renovations, there's I can kind of get into it, but long-term fixed debt is typically 10-year debt. And I know you're on the lending side, right. So you're very interested in the debt side. But the downside of having long-term fixed debt is that if you sell early, so you do get this big pop in appreciation or you want to refinance, you're just not able to do it. You don't have the flexibility to go, and you will have to pay millions of dollars of prepayment penalties to buy out. So we've done that. We paid millions of dollars. And so we've had a couple deals where, it just in the market we've seen for multifamily, real estate for single family has been very stable,
right.
But in multifamily it's come down 20 to 40% in certain markets. So if you only put 20% down, and then for that property is down 40%, no matter what you did to it, you're kind of negative equity.
It's a call, right?
Yeah. So you had maybe a capital call situation, people put additional money in, or there's a risk of the capital. We haven't lost any capital, thankfully, to this point. But anyway, just being aware of the lending side, and there's ways you can get around it, but it was a big learning experience for me.
Sure.
No one expected rates, I'm sure, on the lending side too. There's been a lot of things no one really saw that coming.
The way that popped and the turmoil it created has been really interesting to see over the last couple of years. The fallout and the evolution of all of our businesses, that's for sure.
Right.
So, talk to me a little bit more about. I know obviously you have your investor club, and I'm assuming based on just the years of experience and knowledge that you've gained. But what led you to really look to open that up to the average, you would say, investor who's looking to learn more? Like, what led you there, and why are you so proud of that?
Yeah, so Robert Kiyosaki wrote this purple book called Rich Dad Poor Dad. So that's for anybody listening, if they haven't read that book, this is kind of real estate 101 to start.
Right.
But he would say it's actually selfish to only use your own money, right? So eventually I got to a place where I'd used up the money I had to buy these 4 or 5 houses. And at some point, it makes sense to start looking at, going with bigger deals, bigger projects. There's either two ways people do it. Some people will say, I have enough money. I have more money than I have time. So somebody who's got a net worth of $1 million or more, typically they'll be looking for deals. If I'm a physician, I'm a professional, I have a business. Otherwise, if you have more time than you have money, are you going to make the time like I did? I had a job, I kind of made time. And basically, that was a reason for me to learn to scale and to syndicate deals. But one thing I love doing is I just love helping people solve a money problem, right? Because these days it's like there's a lot of people that say I have a money problem, I don't have money. There's a lot of people that have money, they're like, what do I do with this so that it actually works hard? A lot of times these days, we're taught. I'm actually, I call myself a recovering investment advisor. I used to be a investment advisor. I'm not licensed anymore.
RIA.
Yeah, an RIA, but I'm not licensed anymore. But it's the traditional methods. Traditional methods are stocks and bonds. And I just see these as being incredibly volatile and not really serving a lot of people, particularly stocks. And so there was a time when the stock market crashed in 1929. It didn't actually recover from that point for 25 years, until 1954. And that was, if you include inflation, it was much longer than that. So that's just imagining the next 25 years if there was a crash in the stock market. So I like being in things that are real assets. And at the time, probably in the 1930s, people would say, well, why in the world would you ever buy stocks? Why would you ever do that? But Wall Street's done a great job of really marketing to us that that those are safe and traditional investments. But I think the word is getting out now. I mean, we can't advertise in the same way these, Wall Street firms spends billions of dollars a year. But it's just such a misalignment of interest. You could lose half your money like in 08, 09, and then they're still making money on it. I mean, they always find a way to get paid. There's hidden fees. There's all kinds of stuff, conflict of interest. But one thing I love about the real estate assets that we do, and even the other stuff outside of real estate, is there's an alignment of interest. So if we make money, our investors make money, and vice versa. So we're kind of we see ourselves as partners. We're typically investing alongside our investors as well, and so we put money into projects as well. But it's kind of a lot of fun.
I love that. Yeah. What you mentioned other projects outside of the real estate side. What else are you focused on?
Well, a couple of years ago, we one of the biggest things on my first book, Fire Yourself, I wrote was about how to replace your working income with passive income in 3 years or less. And so the thing that really helps people to be able to become job free or job optional is having cash flow, right? Kind of the idea of a rat race number. So even though I was making $200,000 a year in my job, as a medical sales guy, I only needed to cover $70,000 a year because that's what my living expenses were.
Expense, right? Yeah.
And so if I figured, hey, if I could make $6,000 a month in some sort of investment or passive income, that'd be awesome. And so what happened a couple of years ago is when rates rose, real estate cash flow and real estate investing got to be much more difficult. Right. And we're seeing it now. It's starting to come back. We're seeing some great deals and operators. Things are down 20-30%. Really great markets. We're starting to get just back into it. But there was about a 2-year gap where we really didn't do new deals. So we started looking at other things like ATM machines and car wash and oil and gas and some other private equity stuff. But again, it was really to look and see cash flowing deals. And now we're looking at e-commerce businesses and other businesses that, we have a kind of experienced partner that's done a lot of this, and some of these sell for 3 to 5 times the profit. So, which is kind of amazing. So sometimes you can get a loan for some of it, and you're paying the loan back within a few years, and it's cash flow. Obviously, there's different risks there, but we just like anything that provides cash flow for investors.
I love that. I was reading through your bios, got a chance to connect, and it seems like you're constantly on the go. I mean, obviously, you're coming off of a trip here. You're very active in your lifestyle. You're a songwriter. You've got the investment side. You've got the educational side. How do you make time for it all?
Yeah, well, I think I think time is our most valuable resource that we have, and I think there's a really great book for anybody that has a business or is really in a professional or something. There's a book called Who Not How that talks about when we have this problem of hey, I have this problem. How am I going to solve this? And the right question is, well, who can solve this for me? Right? I know it's something you've probably done in your business as well. Absolutely. It's but you can do it in every area of life. So you can find out, okay, can I, have help, have an executive assistant in my business, which I have, or can I have help on this? Can I outsource certain things? Right. And then, and then we'll just have projects where I'm trying to detach myself from the business enough to where I can be the visionary, I can be the creative, I can create content, write, and do all the stuff I want to do. But last year I traveled 6 times internationally. I went a couple months ago. I went to Everest base camp. Oh wow! Okay. I didn't climb Everest. I went to the base camp, but it was a great time. And then I'm going to Ireland next month. So actually later this month. So,
okay, great. Yeah, and I read obviously you're a very avid traveler. Over 30 countries visited now. It sounds like maybe
45 now. So
45. My goodness. Yeah. And your favorite city in the world is?
Oh, I haven't been there in years. My favorite city is probably Cape Town, South Africa.
What about Cape Town is so appealing?
Just a really beautiful city. The topography, it's got Table Mountain in the middle of the city and these sweeping cliffs, and it's just really gorgeous. It's hard to describe. Yeah.
Very cool. You said Ireland in about a month?
Actually in a few weeks. Yeah, we're in August now.
So. I've got 2 friends that just got back over the last 2 months and both raved about it.
So. Oh, nice. Yeah.
Very good. Well, let's talk more about your writing. You mentioned you'd written a book a few years back. I know you've got a new one that just came out, Rich Brain, correct? Yeah. Maybe you can share with us more about just kind of the concept, the work that went into it, and what someone can expect if they were going to go pick up a copy and take a look.
Yeah, well, Rich Brain, really, I had an Uber ride with one of my Ubers on one of these trips I was on, a work trip, and I was talking with an investor or something, talking about returns or something, and so then somebody's listening, and I got off the phone, and this girl's probably 25 or 30, and said, she's like, how do I learn about money? Like, how do I do this? Or what's out there to help me to grow and grow my wealth? And I could tell I think she was sharing later, she didn't go to college, she graduated high school, but didn't go to college. And so, I was trying to think about it. I said, well, there's some books you can read. There's some things that, like we said, Rich Dad, other things. Right. But I was like, what are the things that people do to actually become wealthy? And I realized, I look back on my experience, that I've had all these interviews, and I've done more since then, but had 2,500 interviews with millionaires, to ask things like net worth and habits and hobbies and just learn about their life. We have a lot of repeat investors, several hundred. So I've realized that there are several things that people do. The subtitle of the book is How the Wealthy Change Their Brain to Change Their Bank Account. Right. So there's actually things, it's kind of the idea that there's some mindset pieces around. There's the idea of worthiness and just feeling like you're worthy of it. And then beyond that, there's some specific habits that if people do these things, they're different than what most people do. But then, again, there's this common belief that people are they're either born with it or not, but it's actually the opposite is true. It's 96%, I'm sorry, it's 86%. I'm getting my facts wrong. Talk like Biden here for a second. Oh boy. Sorry. 86% of millionaires are actually self-made. This was a study by Fidelity Investments a few years ago. And so it's actually almost 9 out of 10 are actually self-made. And so, it shows this is a very learnable process, and people like Warren Buffett say if you want to earn more, you have to learn more. So there's this process of learning those habits and actually becoming wealthy, not just in how much you have, but it's actually the things that you do.
Your
and
habits,
become wealthy, habits, and become the person.
That's incredible. Now, is it safe to assume that part of the investment club that you lead and pours into that and teaches people like, hey, these are the practices you need to, or habits you need to incorporate into your practice to grow both here and in your wallet?
Yeah. This one it's a little more. My first book was more about alternative assets, and that's kind of a how-to manual for if somebody doesn't know, like how do I get into syndication, or what are the tax? I want a tax strategy, how to reduce your taxes potentially to zero, some of that stuff. The new one is more about how do I get myself ready and available so that I'm actually, because a lot of times we have these stories in our head.
Limiting beliefs, right?
These limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
And we come from a family, if I only came from money, or if I only did this, or if I was like so-and-so, everything they do is great. We don't realize the mindset piece is huge. And so a lot of it's about getting that right. And there's some habits in there. One's called wealth whisperings, which is like or even one's called worthiness whispering. So there's really two, but really getting to a place where you feel worthy of wealth. You feel worthy of it. Because a lot of times this is the reason why people will go into circumstances and go into a job interview and totally bomb.
Right.
Or they'll go to ask the girl out and it's
they've
just
already
like,
told the story in their mind.
Because they're like, it's almost they're forecasting what's going to happen. But there's a way you can visualize, have the affirmations. And I'll give a personal example of this. I got divorced, unfortunately, 7 years ago. And I came through it. I just honestly felt, very low sense of self-worth. Like, am I okay? Am I okay with myself, people? A lot of my relationships changed. It was very different. But what I did is I started doing these affirmations. So I started to create affirmations around, these whisperings around confidence. And within it didn't happen right away, but within 6 to 12 months, I started to feel it from the inside. And it came from here. So it sounds, people there's kind of a lot of jokes around affirmations. You say it in the mirror, somebody's talking to himself, and I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me. But, but the idea is like, it really works. And it basically, we're telling our brain, we're telling our subconscious, this is who we are. What happens is as you do it, as you say it, and you visualize it, it starts to combat some of those things that happened or people said a long time ago. And the things that you're repeatedly doing, those are the things you become.
I was talking with a child therapist literally just yesterday, and she was giving the example of somebody who's battling depression. And it's like the hardest thing to overcome depression is to actually get out and go take action, like change your behavior, because you can't change your thoughts. And it's really that action of doing things that can eventually correct your mind there and get you feeling better about it. Totally. Which is incredible. And we're fortunate with our region, the collective area across country, where we have a gentleman named David Alamy who, very similarly, he's focused on mindset. He talks about people's interferences, right? And their interferences are whether it's external people, situations, etc., and then internally, how do they process it? And he literally teaches people how to reprocess this in their mind, focused in on what they want to accomplish and not letting it get in the way. And we've watched it just change the trajectory of the people that we serve. So
it sounds like mindset's helped you a lot too, personally. Yeah. I think people don't realize, like, Tony Robbins would say life is about 80% psychology. Right. I think it's so true, because we just, like, when we're kids, we just kind of cope with things a certain way. We just kind of get through, and then we don't realize that we just have all these thought patterns.
Yourself,
And versus like people like Elon Musk or Bill Gates or some of these, people that have achieved great things, they just look at things totally differently because they're coming from a place of possibility without a lot of those limiting beliefs.
Yeah, it's really incredible to see how powerful that can be. Talk to me a little bit more. I want to know the songwriting. To have written over 75 songs, you perform in the Los Angeles area, like, when did that passion present itself to you in your life, and how do you use that as part of your, overall well-being?
Yeah. I was going to say, how do I use that in my business? I'm trying to figure out how to write a song and work it into passive investing.
The jingle here.
I haven't figured that one out yet. That's one of my goals for the year. I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but yeah, I think, in life, I think that, like I mentioned, going through a divorce, there was a lot of, songs and things there. I think when I went through something very challenging, it was very therapeutic to share. And then I was able to do two things. I was able to transform something very challenging to something very positive. And then secondly, when I was going through something difficult, instead of just calling someone up and sharing something heavy, like feeling like I slimed them or something, I was able to bring something and have it be shared, and then they can say, oh, I really hear your emotion, or I really feel your thoughts. So I think that the idea of, a lot of people I know are really successful, have a creative side. Not every single person, but I do think business involves a fair amount of creativity. And so, some people paint, or they find, or even just creating events, or they write, or other things. And Brené Brown is someone who I've discovered that really is amazing. And she talks a lot about the power of vulnerability. And it's very vulnerable to create anything. Just even like creating a show, or creating your business, or creating an event, because people can reject it. They can say, this is stupid, whatever. But I think when I'm doing my best, I'm creating, I'm putting things out there. And so I think, sometimes it's hard to write anything when we're in the mode of the critic.
Right.
But we have to I get in the mode where it's like, there's no bad ideas. I'm just out here putting things on a page, just let it flow, whatever. And then later, you go back and you kind of critique and evaluate. And it's a great way to write as well, just to write. Don't critique it. It'll slow you down. And so, but I think, as I've created things and just being a creator, it really allows people to see your products, your heart, to get more of, what it is you're doing. And I think when you do take your time to write a song, write a book, write an article, something, you have to kind of really craft your thoughts into where you want to go. So there's a lot of, and I love we're doing this interview. There's a lot of, interviews and podcasts, and there's so much now. I think there's millions of podcasts. But I think when we are able to really go study something, put something out there as a writer, it really helps you kind of hone, really what you want to say into a few
your authentic
words.
Thoughts around it. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
Well, I know you've got a lot of things on your plate right now. What's the most exciting upcoming project that you're focused on?
Well, I think the book, I'm super excited about that.
Obviously,
just continue to create that one. Yeah. We've got some real estate projects we're really excited about. Again, we're just starting to get back into the multifamily real estate we've got a new partner for that, which we're really excited about. And then, we're just continuing to try to find ways to create value. I think for me, it's, I love having, I call it a little more of a lifestyle business. So my goal is to own everything and operate nothing.
Okay.
And so, I want to be almost like alongside our passive investors where I'm invested in, I'm helping them to get into it. And I'm creating, times where I work hard and times where I get away and I go do fun things.
Yeah,
exactly.
Totally.
So I like being able to do it. And then I just like, the possibility that life holds, opportunities that come up that we don't expect. There's serendipities being available for it. And I think that as well. Yeah.
Very good. I know you've got the investment club, obviously, and there's a promotion that's getting ready to start right now. Is that correct?
We do have a giveaway. So for your audience, happy to do a giveaway. We have this guide. So one thing I realized a couple years ago is that inflation is not your friend when you're at the pump or you're, going to the grocery store. And I said, no, I think in the last 4 years, the cost of groceries has gone up over 50%.
Oh, it's crazy. I think the cost of a loaf of bread or
crazy. Yeah. It's like shock every time we go. So, instead of getting penalized, is there a way that you can actually use inflation to your advantage? And so I created a guide with that title, How to Use Inflation to Your Advantage. It uses real estate, debt, stuff on precious metals, and there's some kind of creative things that most people haven't heard.
Yeah.
It's a 40-page PDF ebook I wrote.
Perfect.
And I think it's relevant now. I think that they say inflation is only 3-4%. I think it's actually still much higher, but they like to report lower. But if your audience texts the word inflation to 33777, they can get a free copy of that. So it's inflation to 33777.
Tell them again for me.
Yeah, the word inflation to 33777.
Awesome. Well, Bronson, I really appreciate your time again. Again, Bronson Hill with Bronson Equity, just, incredible, multifaceted man. Appreciate you taking some time on your way home. Thank you so much.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks so much, Mason. Appreciate it.